What are some convincing arguments that skeptics currently have against the use of psychedelics in therapy? And could scientists address these concerns? Who wants to start?
I'll start.
Okay.
So I was really moved by Rosalind's talk. I don't know where she went, but that was a really, really powerful talk, and it brought up something that is of great concern to me. So the question is, what should we be worried about in psychotherapy? Right? I think that the question of what do you do when the effects of the medicine wear off is really going to be a question that's going to haunt us. I mean, this is really a major issue. How long do they last? And what do you do? And if people sort of get a taste of feeling hugely better and they lose it, how do you address that? How do you help people think about that? How do you prepare people for that? How do you work with it? So, I mean, I think, and I was just saying this to folks I was talking to up front, my great concern right now is not that people are going to dismiss psychedelics, not that people are going to underestimate psychedelics. My concern, and I've just seen this happen, when I started in this work 3-4 years ago, people thought I was crazy, right? And then about a year ago, they thought I was cool, right? And now I find myself being like this kind of anxious naysayer because the desire for a means of salvation is so powerful in human beings, and the hope for some sort of ultimate cure or final answer, or it's so profound that my great fear now is that these agents are being oversold, and that when people realize that they're not going to solve all of life's problems, or they may introduce new problems, like for instance, you go to the mountaintop, and then now you got to come back down, that people become overly disillusioned, and then they'll go the other way, right? I've seen this in psychiatry over and over again where, something shows promise, so it becomes the great white hope, and then when it doesn't answer all problems, it gets sort of dismissed or pushed aside because, hope dashed is a powerful thing for turning people against something. So I've now found myself sometimes in contexts where I go around as this sort of gloom and doom guy saying, let's temper our expectations so that we don't end up paradoxically damaging the very thing we're trying to do because it's not perfect. Let's not let the perfect be the enemy of the good, as they say.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so the question of the long-term effects is huge. I mean, it's what's going to happen long-term is a big question. And actually, to be provocative, I sometimes say that the psychedelics you can almost see in a way that how you can almost call it destructive drugs, in the sense that they are very good to loosen up, perhaps your rigid schemes of thinking and so on. But they are drugs. They don't build something on top of that. You need basically to work with somebody to build them. So basically, that's a problem, and that's why you need the whole integration and so on. But the other critique, what skeptics I've heard a lot saying is, well, what is it that's working? Is it like the biological mechanism, or is it like the experience? Because if it's the experience, then maybe these guys can become religious and go to a church and have a mystical experience. And one possible answer is, well, yeah, maybe they should go to the church, I don't know. The other is, well, maybe there are ways to disentangle. So one we are trying to do is we'll try to do next year with not with psychedelics per se, with ketamine, which also has this critique sometimes. Is it experience? Is it the mechanism? Basically, we are partnering with, even though we're not going to measure depressed patients, we're going to measure changes in mood, like if mood improved or not, and we're going to work with surgeons. We're going to perform procedures with general anesthesia. And some of them will get a shot of ketamine while they are under anesthesia, and the other group no. And we'll measure the difference. And it couldn't be then because of the subjective experience, because you're anesthetized. So maybe if we need to disentangle that, then we need to turn off consciousness and see if we get the same effect.
We should talk, because we're getting ready to do something similar. We're actually developing a study where we're going to give people psilocybin, but give them not a fully anesthetic dose of midazolam, but a dose that will induce amnesia to see whether or not, if you let people have a psychedelic experience but take away the memory of it, whether it has effect. It's the same question.
That's very good.
Yeah.
So I've just received the Slido questions that we got from during the last session. I would like to ask you for some input on one or two of these. So one of the questions is, do we need more collaboration or more competition in academic research? What do you
more
think?
competition. We don't have enough competition. You know,
I do not agree. We should collaborate because together we have a bigger data set and we can do more and make faster steps.
There is this thing now called adversarial correlation, which is basically competition. Right? No? They have these schemes in which you have opposing, you are competing, but in the same way you are they call it adversarial collaboration, but I don't see much the difference between competing. Yeah.
One of the other questions posed by the audience was, how do we ensure that bringing psychedelic science into the mainstream doesn't risk turning it into a way of sustaining the current capitalistic status quo that is destroying our planet? E.g., pollen giving CEOs the idea that LSD can make staff more creative and make more money, though.
Okay. Well, exactly. It's an interesting question, and there is no answer. Again, we were talking about this yesterday. In fact, I was talking with Sasha, who was driving me in, about how, there may be a future. We're so wasteful as human beings, and, maybe in the future there'll be an AI world where every single one of us will be told what to do at all times, will be massively effective, and that would solve that problem, except it sort of sounds like hell, right? So it's sort of the same problem here, where if you set aside set aside for a second the sort of commercial interest, this question of, can we use psychedelics to keep competing with each other, to be more creative, to be more successful, to be more, so that if you're not part of the society that's taking these creative inducing chemicals, you're going to just be like a human that doesn't have an implant in your brain, somewhere down in the future getting AI help, right? Psychedelics, although they're ancient, could be seen as a potential enhancement strategy that would then further stratify human capacity. And so, that is a sort of Orwellian sort of perspective. But on the other hand, would we really want to deprive ourselves of something that could make us more than we are? There's no answer to those sort of questions, I think. I mean, there's problems in all directions, and at the end of the day, this is why I really appreciate what Thomas Metzinger was saying yesterday, you got to find some sort of middle path, and that middle path is complicated. It will always be imperfect, and the world will always be problematic, because that's the world we live in. In terms of the commercialization, this is something that's, of course, hugely interesting to us because as a nonprofit, commercialization is not something that is part of our portfolio. Commercialization, yes, there is a huge, it is a huge mandate to find a sustainable, responsible, and scalable way to get something like psilocybin, if it works for depression, into the public. It's a massive question. But part of what's so cool about working for Usona is that we confront that challenge, and it's a big challenge, but we confront it without the extra sort of incentive or goad of needing to also produce a large profit for shareholders or investors. So part of our goal, whatever else happens in psychedelic land, there'll be many other substances, there'll be many, big pharma, and I mean big pharma, is interested in this space. They're talking, they've called me. There will be, if it works, there will be a significant infusion of sort of, those elements. And there may be some real good from that. Part of what's cool about working for Usona, though, is that our hope, I think our vision is that for psilocybin, we would like to find a way to make this available to the widest group of people in the most cost-effective way possible, with the least restrictions based on, the sort of constrictions that go along with having to commercialize something in that more sort of standardized way. That's sort of hard to answer the question, but I mean, I think that that's really the point here. There will, this field, if it works, there will be significant commercialization. What we'd love to see is a non-profit presence that makes these agents also available in ways that are just not possible, we think, under more for-profit commercial models.
Thank you very much, Chuck. We would like to invite every one of you to share a statement, something you want to share with the audience at this point of the conference.
And then perhaps debate.
Well, that's my statement.
A statement with regard to the question?
A statement with regard to what we have been talking about in general today. There's something, a take-home message you would like to give to our audience here.
Oh, okay.
You can be critical.
No, I don't want to be critical. I just, from a scientist and from a person coming from an academic environment, I would like to state that the challenge I see is to transform the messages we are talking about here today in this audience, that we have to transfer this message to the academic world, to all the clinicians and colleagues, psychologists, psychiatrists out there working with millions of patients, and so we have to educate them, we have to do good science, we have to build a scientific knowledge base, and we have to communicate this knowledge to the broader audience. And that's the challenge for the coming years.
Yeah, so I think I want to share maybe like 3 things. First of all, I mean, I've been working in this field for, I think, roughly 7 or 8 years now, and I think what it has evolved into, like seeing all these people here now, this is so amazing, this is so great, and it certainly wasn't the same way 8 years ago. And I think we made so many steps forwards, and this is, well, obviously due to very good science that has been conducted in recent years for people who have supported this science, and obviously for all the people who are interested in what we are doing and what has been accomplished. And I think this already is pretty amazing. And the second 2 things are, so this was about the past and the present, and the second 2 things are probably more about the future. And here I agree, first of all, I think there is, with these compounds, there is a massive potential for clinical populations that we need to tackle now, and that we need to understand and see whether we can actually make a difference with these substances, even if it's just for a subset of the individuals we're treating. Even that would already be wonderful. And the third one is regarding the problem that you just have addressed in your question, like, should we now, or do we feel the pressure to take these substances because it might be, an enhancer, it might be the one thing that leads to a successful life. And I actually don't think that this is a problem at all. Because while science has shown that this is, it has a massive potential in clinical populations, we have very little scientific evidence that these drugs make us somehow superhuman. And if they were, there would be a lot of superhumans in this room right now.
Yeah, so I say the basic thing is not to screw up, basically, with psychedelics. That's the first step, right? Not to screw up, you know what I mean, right? It's the lessons of history is that you don't have to ask yourselves what are the problems, the errors that were committed before, because you already have those in textbooks. The question is the ones that you don't know yet. But they see a parallel in what happened before in the past. This notion that psychedelics can save the world for a very difficult situation. When it was the Cold War, and now we have climate change, and it tends a little bit to be, promising, because you see you see these people in the rainforest, and they don't have these materialistic societies, and they do not have, they don't have these CO2 emissions, and they consume psychedelics. So I think that the problem, a way to avoid that trap of falling again into this idea that psychedelics need to be massive for the world to be saved, is to realize that what happened in the history of psychedelics was a confusion between cause and effect in a certain way. Is the idea that you can think it the other way around, that you are one of those guys living in the Amazonian rainforest, and then you travel to New York, and then you like what you see, right? You like the technology, you like the food, you like the transport, and all seems to have to do with these little pieces of paper that people exchange around. So what you do is you take a big bag of those pieces of paper, like dollar bills, into the rainforest, and then basically nobody knows what to do with them. It's like, some people try to build dresses from that or use it on napkins. It's the idea that the society is different, and then, of course, the society can coexist in a certain way with psychedelics. But it doesn't seem obvious to me that you can use them as tools for massive transformation of the society. And I have seen many times this idea that we are approaching many crises as a society, and I think we shouldn't even try to rely on psychedelics as the answer for that. And it sounds outlandish what I'm doing, but it happened, I think, in the past in a way, and I think it's something that doesn't need to happen. What is the way to solve this? We don't know. The question you ask is like, it's too difficult. I think Slavoj Žižek said once that it's easier for humans to imagine the end of the world than a post-capitalist society, because you have more Hollywood movies about apocalypse scenarios than convincing. And I think we are reaching a point in which, in some years or centuries, even the 1%ers, even the people who are the richest in the world, will want a post-capitalist society, and they will not know how to do it. But psychedelics will not do. That's what I want to say.
Thank you very much.